Yeah, afternoon all. Um, I just did the next right thing, so to speak, in regards to an earlier video I made a couple of days ago about my fear that a meeting I attended online was, just a confabulation, where over years people have recorded other people's shares and, they put them together basically to play one another, or individuals against one another, um, and rationalised and justified that it was therapeutic in nature. It was nothing natural about it. To what extent uh, it was being played at, I don't really know, but reality is I'll go home at the end of this month. There's a little bit of fear, because I think it's an international conspiracy. The family, cloning, uh, military, government, things along those lines. So how far it gets, I don't really know. And the good thing about it is I'm not overly stressed about it. Whether it's all in my own head or not, I don't really know. But the truth of the matter is, I handed it over, so to speak, to the proper authorities, and they can either investigate it or dismiss it. And individuals like that target individuals with mental health issues, because if my theory is correct, the military has its own psychiatric field, and, they work with other research agencies and pharmaceutical companies, and all, one big massive plot. Um, so I don't know how far I'd get, so to speak. Um, and reality is, when I first came, began experiencing symptoms, a voice in my head said, it has to be real. It has to be real. He already knows too much, you know, uh, and things along those lines. And, with this deep state, I guess, there are individuals, I guess, who are in that collective or family, so to speak, that are, where that kind of action, uh, as dehumanizing as it is, and even fatalistic, can be played out, in order to get people to toe the line. That's what I've surmised anyway. Whether that's old school now or not, I don't really know. Julian Assange is still alive, but, they're working him over pretty good. Um, so, um, and that's what that was my next move. You know, I didn't think about it very long. Reality is this with this particular individual, and the insight that's come up for me over the last 3 or 4 days, perhaps even a week, in regards to the relationship with my own mother. I suspect that this individual that I reported, that seems to be the, I wouldn't say the maestro, but he seems to be the maestro of the anonymous fellowship that I attend. So and I suspect, that this individual, is still in denial about the relationship he had with his deceased mother. So um I don't have an outlet to talk about these kinds of things. You know, here in Southeast Asia, the contact I had with my uh, uh, psychologist, clinical psychologist, has been sabotaged as well. In the sense that every time, or not every time, but a few times that I've tried to contact him, my messages won't get through. It refuses to send them, and there have been messages from him that have been delayed, for 5 or 6 weeks. So it's all silly buggers, so to speak, and it may very well be therapeutic, but it doesn't terrify me to the same extent as what it once did, when I was still dealing with trauma, so, and I'm still pretty much a radical, my, I have a psychotic mental illness, but I'm sick of being victimized by these individuals, and perhaps it's a control issue. I resent them for having more power and control than what I do. Um, but to get heard, you have to be willing to follow the mechanisms within society to voice your concerns, if that makes sense. And by that I mean, um, the FBI, I guess, answers to the government as well. And the government, uh, yeah, eventually, answers to the people. But, there's processes involved. Um, so I feel pretty good about myself in the sense, that I've taken a course of action which may unseat or, um, at the very least, um, you it draws the line, where I have to establish boundaries, and whether I continue to attend these meetings online, I don't really know. I know they're beneficial for me in the sense that generally, I get something out of it. Um, but, I guess there's controversy, because I don't promote or commercialize um, the program like some individuals do, and that's where that cult shit comes in, and I refuse to buy into it. Um, uh, yeah, so, that's where I'm at today. Um, it's just a bit of a spray, really, just to validate to myself that I did the right things. I'm willing to play the game. Whether this guy gets unseated or not, I don't really know. But, it makes me paranoid and want to test every individual that gets asked to speak, to see whether they're legitimate or not, or if it's just some recording. So, and that's pretty wicked as well, in the sense, that digital technology is used for a scientific purpose to study dynamics and the recovery process of individuals involuntarily. You know, um, the scum of life, junkies getting studied as they get well. I feel as though I am well. I feel as though I have recovered. I still have some anomalies and discrepancies in my nature, but I can cope with that today. Whereas, I lived by the delusion for quite a number of years that I'd be transformed into this naturalized state of being, where I could blend in with so-called normal people. So that's, I was willing to join the Red Army, in order to act out my fantasies of revenge, for on this particular individual. It's a little bit like playing slaps. Your move, my move, trying to trump one another, you know, all the time. And that's all I was doing. So I think contacting the FBI was the right move. Um, because, whether they have any power to change that or not, or I just have to accept the fact that, within society, nothing goes to waste. And the truth of the matter is, governments may not have the capacity to track every bit of information that goes through the internet, but they certainly do have the capacity to study the sex industry and anonymous fellowships. So um yeah, you know so reality is I've just got to let it go now, in the sense that, there's no use spreading about it. There's no use analysing my behaviour or my motives for doing it. I think I've been fairly open and honest about that. Um, and I'm definitely not a saint, but I do believe that my human rights were violated, in the sense that, someone was having a lend of me when all I wanted was access to real people in real time, or in virtual time, that were trying to uh, uh, recover as well. Not some orchestrated harm minimization endeavor, to track and study responses and reactions. you know. So I think I've blown my chance of ever winning the lottery. If I had won the sympathies of these individuals and proven that I'd recovered. So yeah, that was my ultimate goal, and I hung on to that for years. That was my optimism and hope, about, the scandalous nature of science, basically. So yeah, I'd only be rabbiting on if I was to continue. I've had a couple of cans of Coke and a cigarette, but I've also eaten today. So I'm feeling pretty good. So if I was to perish, I'd feel fortunate, in the sense that I have come to know life and society in its full blossom, and I don't feel intimidated by the aberrant nature of being a guinea pig. Um, I'll still rally, I guess, for the underdog, for a fair go. So fuck 'em, cunts. Yeah. So I'll still be rebellious and defiant till the day I die, I guess. But I'm not carrying any secrets of any note today. So that's all I've got to say. Um, Subscribe if you don't think I'm too crazy, and leave a comment. You may be able to relate and identify, and hopefully, give someone else courage. Hopefully, I can give someone else courage to speak out about this randomosity that is schizophrenia. I'll leave it at that. Thank you.